Along with constant new releases in the Assassin's Creed and Tom Clancy series, I swear it's the law for Ubisoft to re-release Rayman 2 The Great Escape whenever a new gaming handheld is unleashed to stores. This is Rayman 3D, a launch title for the Nintendo 3DS and a re-release of the already mentioned Rayman 2. Yes, Rayman 2 has appeared on many gaming systems since its original release on the Nintendo 64 back in 1999. Ranging from the PlayStations 1 and 2, the original DS and the Dreamcast, of which the 3DS port is primarily based on. It's just bizarre that Rayman 3D is a port of Rayman 2 and not Rayman 3 Hoodlum Havoc, which hasn't been re-released on every gaming system known to man. Granted, for me, this is the first time I've played Rayman 2 since the N64 original, and yes, Rayman 3D is better, but not 12 years worth of gaming history better. In case you've never played or heard of Rayman 2 before, it's a late 90s 3D platformer, the years when 3D platformers were more common than first-person shooters. In the wake of the legendary and revolutionary 3D platformers such as Super Mario 64 and Banjo-Kazooie, many games developers tried to imitate and replicate them. Many failed, but there were some that succeeded both critically and commercially, Rayman 2 being one of them. Unlike Mario 64 and Banjo, which gave you a hub world that gave you access to new open worlds the more golden tokens you collected, Rayman instead gives you an overworld map, similar to Super Mario World and Crash Bandicoot, with the levels mostly requiring you to get to the end, by passing through fairly linear environments. This was still the late 90s though, so there were still collectibles in the form of these fairy-type creatures called lums, but they weren't the main focus of the gameplay. Of course, Rayman 3D is the same game, despite its cunningly changed title. The 3D obviously indicates that this is in full stereoscopic 3D, thanks to the glasses-free technology of the 3DS. But does it add anything to its core experience? In short, no. Although it definitely isn't a hindrance. Playing with the 3D on definitely gives the levels more depth, but unless you accidentally tilt the system too far, obscuring the 3D, you'll forget it's even on, which is no real bad thing really, although there are sections where the levels become fairly vertical, whether this means falling from great heights or climbing them. These moments look great with the 3D effect turned on and really adds to the immersion of Rayman's world. As mentioned earlier, you collect these fairy-like creatures called lums. The yellow variety are your main objective, as they are needed to proceed to the next level. Luckily there are plenty of yellow lums scattered throughout the levels, whether they be in open or in some cases trapped in cages. Just a couple of thrown orbs from Rayman is all that's needed to break them open. They are put in increasingly difficult locations with each passing level. Other varieties of lums come in red and green. The red are used to replenish sections of your health, while the green act as checkpoints in the levels if you happen to find yourself falling into the many hazards. Of course, with any game, there are enemies to fight, but unlike traditional platformers of the late 90s where jumping on their head meant that they met their untimely doom, Rayman, as mentioned earlier, throws orbs from his fists. You can fire them as frequent as you like, but the enemies once hit fade and become briefly untouchable until they come back into focus. You can lock onto the enemies, the robot pirates, but it doesn't stop the monotony of the combat. You shoot, wait for 5 seconds by strafing left and right, avoiding their projectiles, then fire again. Rinse and repeat until it's destroyed. You can charge your attack, but it takes too long and it slows your movement, so you end up getting hit in the process and losing your charge. Basically, in short, the combat is boring and tedious, which breaks the game's flow. The story is strange yet pretty forgettable, involving robot pirates led by Admiral Razorbeard, yes, I did say that, invading the Glade of Dreams and destroying its core. This disables Rayman's powers and he becomes captured along with his blue friend Glowbox as a result. Glowbox manages to smuggle in a silver lum which gains Rayman the ability to fire the orbs. He promptly escapes and it's your job to restore the land by finding the 4 ancient masks before the robot pirates do, so you can awaken the Polocus, yeah I can't pronounce that, the spirit of the world. But then again, you never really came to this game expecting a deep story. The story and characters' dialogue is told through a series of text boxes as the characters just speak through gibberish. This would be fine, but when I found out that the Dreamcast and the PS2 versions had full voice acting, I thought it's just another sign of Ubisoft's laziness. You see, Rayman 2 wasn't a bad game, and it still isn't. Neither is Rayman 3D, but the whole package just feels effortless. You can complete the game in under 8 hours, and there's nothing that makes you want to go back, unless you have some sort of OCD lump fetish to collect every last one, in which case, see a professional. The game is playable, and I would recommend Rayman 3D if you enjoy 3D platformers, and if you're yet to play one of the many iterations of Rayman 2. Is it the best version? Probably not. With its lack of voice acting, disjointed music and occasional glitches, for example twice my 3DS black screened on me during the game, which hasn't happened on any of my other 3DS games. I feel harsh giving it a 6 out of 10, but the slapdash nature of this 12-year-old game just screams lazy. It's Rayman 3D from Ubisoft for the Nintendo 3DS.